What's happening, people? It's Brian Alsruhe, NEVERsate.com, and it's snowing. So guys, the other day when I said that I was recording a podcast, it was actually someone else's podcast. Right now I'm trying to get on as many podcasts as I can so that I can get some exposure to how other people are doing it, because when I do start my podcast, which is going to be very, very soon, I just want to be as good as possible. But this part 2 of Dave Maconi's Brains and Gains podcast, where he had me on just last week. So if you guys want to check out part 1, you can find the link in the description box down below. You guys are going to recognize a lot of other guests on his page that are friends of my channel. So if you guys do want to check it out, definitely do that. Otherwise, I'm going to throw it to him. He's going to explain kind of what he does for his channel, because it has to do with charity and stuff. It's a really cool idea. So thank you for having me on, Dave.
What's up, everyone? So I'm Dave Maconi, and if you're watching this, you're obviously on Brian's channel for part 2 of this podcast. Part 1 is on my channel, so you can check that out there. We also have other podcasts with people like Alan Thrall, Joey Zatmary, Eric Helms, Lane Norton, other people in the field. And for every podcast, I make a personal donation to charity, and we have a link below where you can also make a donation if you like the cause. For this one with Brian, we're going to be doing Lenny Lifts. He has a fund called AMRAP for Awareness, and basically it's for autism awareness. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. So let's go on a less somber note. Let's get into some practical advice for people.
Sure.
So obviously, very successful strongman. What are some of the most important exercises besides the actual strongman lifts that you've found to help your performance?
Well, I'll definitely say, of course, squats and deadlifts are huge. Now, in strongman, we don't have a lot of squat events. They're starting to gain some traction, but there's not a ton of them. They're mainly all deadlift events, and a lot of people don't realize that the deadlift in strongman, they don't allow you to pull sumo. So you have to pull conventional. So, of course, conventional deadlift is going to make that list. I would say things like front squats or an SSB squat is absolutely amazing for strongman, just because it builds up your core and your posterior chain. And a lot of things in strongman, it's with big, cumbersome, awkward objects that you need to have out in front of you, right? If you've ever picked up a big heavy box or a big heavy tree stump or something, like carrying things out in front of you is pretty rough on you. So learning how to do things like front squats or Zercher squats or SSB squats that are naturally going to throw weight in a kind of more compromised position are going to translate over very, very well. As far as upper body, we don't do bench press in strongman. You will never compete in the bench press. It's all overhead press. Now, those overhead presses almost always, like 99% of the time, can be gotten there any way that they can. So if you like doing Olympic lifts, so like a split jerk or a regular jerk, if you like doing push presses, all of that counts. So there's a lot of controversy, sometimes even on my own videos, where I'll say 400-pound overhead press, which most people see as a strict press, but in strongman world, that just means you put something above your head. And so there'll be like hate on my channel because of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so a lot of overhead pressing things, pin presses, anything that's going to drive up your tricep strength. But the only reason why we use bench at all as strongman is really to drive up your tricep strength, because your triceps go up, all of your pressing goes up. Otherwise, we are working on overhead.
Sure. And, as I mentioned earlier, I think that was the first time I had really heard about you was on Omar's channel. You had an OHP, I guess you gave tips and all of that. So
Yep.
Can you just kind of go into your technique and maybe assistance lifts for overhead press? I know for me, I had gone through a couple specialization phases when my pec was kind of messed up, so I focused more on overhead. And after a while, it just wasn't moving anymore. So, just for practical advice to implement for somebody who's maybe stuck on their lift.
Sure thing. So I can go over. All right, so we're talking strict press here?
Yes.
Okay, you got it. A couple things on strict press. Number one, I would say 99% of the problems that I see with the strict press are that people are not breathing and bracing correctly. They're not having enough air into their belly. They're putting it into their lungs. They're making themselves actually more top-heavy than kind of short and stout like a petulant child. You always want to be as short and fat as possible when it comes to moving weight, all right? You can do that with your breathing and bracing. So I think a lot of people are losing stability in their overhead press in their core, which doesn't allow them to actually generate the force into the bar from the beginning, and then they're not holding in their core, so then they can't lock the bar out. So I think technique work is the number one thing that will fix anyone's overhead press. First, learn to breathe and brace. I like things on the breathing and bracing, even like you get your air without the bar in a front rack position. So you get your air before you unrack that bar, you do a 2-drop step, you drop your 1 foot back, other foot back, and then you're pressing out. if you do anything more than that, if you walk the bar out and it's in front rack position, you're breathing and bracing there, you cannot get nearly as much air into your belly as you can with something in the front rack position under load as you can without it. So I always do that, not under load while the bar's in the rack. I step out fast and then I explode. Now, I get as many reps as I can on that first breath. After that, when people make this mistake all the time, they will drop the bar down into the front rack position and they'll breathe there and they'll rest there. However, you're, like I just explained, you're never going to get air back into your belly there because you're being compressed. You're collapsing your diaphragm by sticking your bar on top of your shoulders. You're not flexing your butt, so you're not firing posterior chain. It's sitting there in carotid artery. There's a lot of bad things going on there. Instead, I think people should press out the bar to the top of the movement, get their air there, and then it's almost like compressing a spring. As you come down, you have air in your torso, which your arms are going to come down, press off of, and then explode back up. That alone is going to take someone, if they have a 5-rep max, that's going to change that to an 8-rep max overnight. Plus the breathing and bracing at the beginning, most likely their max is going to go up. There's so much with technique. I could talk to you about technique on overhead press for hours.
Yeah.
But another thing that people are doing wrong, I mentioned briefly earlier, is that their triceps are not strong enough, and number 2, their upper back is not strong enough. Mainly the upper back. So a lot of people are like, what's a good overhead press assistance exercise? And I'm like, rows and weighted pull-ups will make your overhead press go up every time. Just like rows will make your bench press go up every single time, but people don't do it.
Interesting. I think there was, I don't remember if it was Omar or Candido talking about for overhead pressing, and they had kind of done like a double pause where they'd hold it down, and then at the top of the lift, they would hold it for like a 2 count. I tried that for maybe a couple months. I don't know if it really helped much. How do you feel about that? Because it is a little different than what's traditionally done.
I don't know because I've never tried it, and I never have an opinion on something I haven't tried
Sure.
because there's been a lot of things I think will work that don't, and things I think when it did do. I will say that weighted pull-ups have done more for me than anything, but you can't like throw like a 10-pound weight on and do weighted pull-ups. I'm talking like 100, 200 pounds around your waist going, like trying to work towards a world record pull-up at your weight. Like that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. That will make your overhead press go up like magic.
Awesome. And so how would this differ from a push press, and what do you think is a good ratio for strength between a push press and a strict press?
For me and the athletes in my gym, now my gym and most of my athletes, I train state champions, national champions, world champions, UFC fighters. It's a high caliber of individual, and almost across the board, everyone can add just about 100 pounds once they add their legs into their overhead press.
Wow.
So from the strict press, like for me, before I was injured, my regular strict press was probably about 315 for a single, maybe a double, and my overhead press was around 405, 415 when I started adding my legs in.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty incredible. I'm trying to think. For me, nowhere near yours. I'd probably say maybe a 50%, probably like a 25 to 50% increase depending on how much I was doing it. So for you, because I know some people will count like a jerk as the push press. I know you have some videos, so I'll probably, since this is audio, I'll probably just kind of clip in
Sure.
some of your videos in there too. And you mentioned you train a lot of athletes, so
Yep.
And you're obviously very athletic yourself, and you have done a lot of martial arts. How have you found that you were? Because a lot of people will say that you really got to focus on one thing to be great at it. How have you found that your strength training, and specifically maybe even strongman training, has impacted your athletic performance?
I agree that if you're going to be great, and I mean like truly great at something, then you need to be super specific. That said, I think most people will never become truly great at something, so they might as well enjoy what they're doing.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. Can you tell me the question again? I completely lost it.
No problem. Yeah, well, just how your strength training has impacted maybe, like, let's say, martial arts training.
Yep. When I was doing martial arts, as I said before, muscles were part of the game, right? Like, now we're smarter. And back in 1993, when I was watching, like, Highlander, we didn't know quite as much, right? So now we understand that there is a point of no return with muscle, where if you put on too much muscle, it actually hurts you. But back when I was watching Jean-Claude Van Damme, that was not the case. You know what I mean? Like, the more muscle, the better. That's just what we're thinking. So lifting was always part of my martial arts game, and martial arts was always part of my lifting game, because I thought having muscles without being able to use them was the most ridiculously stupid thing I'd ever heard in my life. And conversely, I thought having martial arts ability, and yet if someone was so much stronger than you, if they got a hold of you, that they could just fold you up, I was like, that's pretty stupid as well. Maybe we should work on a balance. So I will say a lot of people run into trouble that if they do nothing but lifting and they don't want to do something athletic, they find that they can't because they've lost all of their flexibility and things like that. I feel like if you want to be both athletic and strong, then you need to do both all the time, right? So my lifting always complemented my fighting, and my fighting always complemented my lifting. But now that I moved on to strongman, I will say that the movements are actually functional. I know people talk about like a deadlift being functional, a squat being functional, but they're not. How many times do you walk out and you help your buddy move a couch? You don't help your buddy move a barbell.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a big, awkward, cumbersome object that's unbalanced. And so that's exactly what strongman is. Like, if you can lift up a 300-pound stone, you can lift up a 300-pound absolutely anything in the world. Mm-hmm. So it just teaches you how to use your body in different sorts of ways, and that's exactly what fighting does, because you're manipulating an object that is constantly changing in another human being. The force is not relative to one given plane at any time. It can switch on you. There's torque. There's all types of things going on. And so the strongman training has added to my fighting stuff so incredibly well that you see now in the UFC they're hiring all types of strongman trainers. I work with quite a few UFC fighters with my online programming and stuff. It just translates over so well to combat sports as well as sports like football and rugby, where you need to tie someone up and bring them down, or you need like some grip strength and some crush strength with your body. It just it's amazing, man. If any of if there's any college athletes or young athletes out there that are doing the traditional strength programs from college coaches where you're doing a bunch of power cleans and snatches and stuff, but you're a football player, I would highly recommend that you stop doing that. You get some sandbags, some kegs, some stones, and you learn how to manipulate heavy weight that's awkward and cumbersome and shifts on you, because that will translate over to a human body so much better than a snatch or a hang clean ever will.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And, I would kind of agree with you what you said between the martial arts and the weightlifting, because I do think if you really want to be great at something, and you're talking like two different sports, right? Like I think
Yes.
LeBron James was amazing at basketball and football, and he had to go with basketball, right? He couldn't have been amazing at both. But I do think with weightlifting, it might be an exception because it really just complements everything, and you kind of, at this point, I think most athletic coaches have realized this. Pretty much every sport has their athletes training. So my brother and I both have wrestling backgrounds, and we were probably both pretty even from a skill standpoint. And I got into lifting well before he did. So,
and those were fun times.
Yeah. And
when the two things are even, strength matters.
Absolutely.
Strength 100% matters. However, the people who think that strength is the only thing that matters are living in a pipe dream, because technique wins every time.
For sure. And that's the thing, is like I never understood when people would say like, size doesn't matter. To me, I'm like, okay, go fight a silverback gorilla and see how you do with your skill.
Right.
But
if you're 150 pounds and you go against Brian Shaw, he's going to fold you up. I don't care how good your jiu-jitsu is.
Exactly. But yeah, so, when my brother, he's my older brother, so obviously, a little cocky there, and he just assumed that he could still, win. And it wasn't even close. I was 5 years into lifting, and he had never really lifted. And, it was just ridiculous, the advantage I had. And
right.
So certainly weightlifting, I think, complements almost every sport you do.
I would say that, but the only reason why I said it the way I said it is because I was talking about being truly great. So, like, if you want to be a world champion strongman, you're not doing jiu-jitsu.
Right.
If you want to be a world champion jiu-jitsu guy, you're not going to be a world champion strongman. You know what I mean? So I just meant it like great like that. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
In my head, I'm like, if you're going to be, like, you can be a very elite lifter. Like, I can total elite right now in powerlifting. I've never done a meet. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't matter to me. Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, I'm just trying to. That's why I said it like that, man. We're saying the same thing. I'm sorry.
No, totally agree. And I think also part of it is just, there's a limit to how much you can recover from. And, if you're doing
100%.
10 hours of strongman, you can only do so much jiu-jitsu or vice versa,
That's the game, is recovery, man. It's who doesn't get hurt longer wins. You know what I mean? In lifting.
Absolutely, yep. So, and this might depend on the particular lift, but, do you have a a specific strategy if somebody comes to you and they say, I want to peak at this lift, for whatever reason, I'm trying to hit a lifetime goal of, 2 times body weight this or 1 times body weight, whatever. Do you have specific peaking strategies for somebody trying to do that?
I wouldn't say that I have specific peaking strategies. And honestly, I'm not terrific at that because I work with powerlifters, but I don't do like that specific stuff where it's like, I want to take my deadlift from this to this, right? I'm like, I will make everything go up at once, but I'm not like a specialist like that because honestly in strongman, your events change every single competition. So you have to just be the most well-rounded dude. You're not a specialist.
I like to kind of have like an actionable step for people to take away from these interviews. So if somebody's coming to you and they really want to do strongman, they've got a lifting background, but they've never really gotten into it. Maybe there's not a strongman gym by them. What suggestion do you have for them to kind of break into it?
Number one, the best possible thing that you could do is get involved with an online community that is with strongman because I guarantee you there's something near you that you don't know. So in my little Maryland nowhere area, there's like 5 strongman gyms within a half an hour of each other, and strongman's not even big in Maryland. So it's around. It's just all of us are horrible at promotion, so you just don't know that's there, right? But if you get involved in the online community, someone will tell you that. Also, if you want to get involved, go to either North American Strongman or Strongman Corporation or US Strongman. Just Google any of them. Those 2 places are the sanctioning bodies for our sport, and there will be upcoming events. And just find something that's near you, drive there, talk to people, because you go up to somebody and you say, hey man, I really want to get involved. Do you know anybody out in wherever you're located? There will be people there. You'll hook up with people, train out of someone's garage, or a lot of times I have friends who didn't have a strongman option. They absolutely did not. So what they did was, instead of paying a gym membership every month, 5 guys got together and they all threw that gym membership into a pot, and that pot bought a yoke, a log, some plates, and rented out a storage area in like a storage garage. And literally they kept all the gear in there, and every Saturday they met, opened up the storage garage and trained out there in the parking lot, and then put it right back in. So when people want to get involved, so much of strongman equipment is do-it-yourself with someone just welding it together or hammering it together or drilling it together. So it can definitely be done. You just need to be willing to deal with the suck of strongman, because out of all of the strength sports, it 100% is the most punishing and beats you up. If you don't have a passion for it or a good reason, like you want to be a great football player and you want to use it as a means to an end, I would highly recommend that you stay with that barbell because it's going to beat you up a lot less.
Awesome. So last thing here is a quick 3-question speed round, so you can just give 1 word or 1 sentence answers. And I'm going to give you the same ones I gave Joey. So what is your favorite strongman lift?
Atlas stones.
I think that was his answer too. Probably obvious answer here, but who is tougher, strongmen, weightlifters, or powerlifters?
Fighters.
Okay.
Out of those 3?
Yeah.
Strongman. Definitely strongman. And that's not being biased, that's true.
Sure. And who is in your opinion, number 1 most impressive lifter in any category?
That's a great question, man. When it comes to fighting stuff, immediate names pop into my head. When it comes to lifting, right now you can't deny pound for pound what Larry Wheels is doing. Mm-hmm. I literally have never watched a YouTube video of his. I don't know what he actually does in real life as far as his competition, because I don't really follow people. But I will say, what I see on Instagram, some of the feats of strength that he does, I'm like, something special is going on here. You know what I mean? So I don't know what he's going to do with it, but currently right now, I would say freaks of freaks is probably him. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does with it.
Yeah, and he's so young too. And actually,
exactly.
Joey's answer was between you and him, between you and Larry, actually.
Oh, that's pretty much the nicest compliment I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, because Larry is what, like 23 or something like that?
I don't know, man. He's too young to be moving that kind of weight. That's all I'm saying. Like, that kind of muscle maturity in that kind of time. My big fear for him is getting hurt, obviously, but man, he's making his money. He's doing his thing. I'm proud of him. I've never met him personally, but a bunch like Jujim Fu and guys that I'm friends with are friends with him, and they're like, dude, he's salt of the earth. He's a great guy. So, man, I only want great things for him. I hope he stays healthy, and I honestly want to see what he can do.
For sure. And I'm curious, you said you had an answer in your head for the fighter, so who would that have been?
Marcelo Garcia for jiu-jitsu, and probably Rickson Gracie just overall.
Cool. So where can people find your stuff, man? You've got the YouTube channel, you've got Instagram, anywhere else?
I have like Facebook and stuff, but honestly, I kind of mail that one in. It's for me, if you leave a comment or have a question on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram, I get back to everyone there. So if you guys follow me there on Instagram, it's at NEVERsate. For my YouTube, it's Brian Alsruhe, common spelling. So yeah, if you guys want to check it out, there's a lot of information there that I spent a lot of time doing, and I appreciate every single person that comes.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and I'll have the links there down below. So thanks so much for talking with us today, man.
Thanks, man. I so much appreciate this.